Good afternoon, quilt roadies. Well, as you saw at the beginning, there are thunder heads forming, and they are amazing to watch grow. Because you know, the one that you just saw at the beginning of this, it's twice as big already, and it's supposed to be 100 degrees here by 5 o'clock. So I imagine we'll have some spectacular thunder and lightning, heat lightning. Last night when we were taking our garbage cans out, there was heat lightning in the sky, and that's where it kind of lights up, but you don't hear the crack in the, because around here, when you get lightning, you actually can see it hit the ground. That's what a majority of our forest fires are started by, lightning strikes in the forest. It is so, we have so much smoke, not in town here, but across the mountain range, from a fire in California and one in the Willamette Forest. We're the Deschutes Forest. So it's very difficult to even see. It's very hazy and you can't see the mountains very well. But those thunderheads, oh my gosh, that thing just keeps growing. It's right coming across the top of the house. So I better get sewing before I have to unplug my sewing machine. It is going to be a facing day in the beehive. I have taken a break from my, only a momentary break, mind you, from my bag making, my project bag making. I'll show you two of them that I finished. This one's for me. This one's for me. You know, I have such love for my time in France. And see, on the back I use that panel that I got from the Stitchin' Post. And then a little charm here of the Eiffel Tower. Isn't that cute? And this was fabric I had in my stash. See, that's the thing. I purchase project bags, but then I get to the point where I see some fabric in my stash that I think, oh, that would just make the perfect project bag. And so I have to make it. And then here's my owl one. Isn't that, and look at this charm that I found in my closet. I know, it's so crazy, huh? I mean, that charm is like, let me see if I can get him to show up. Oh, there he goes. Look at him. Yeah. Well, I have 4 more project bags to make, and then I'm done with project bags for a while. I had to take a break because I didn't have the zipper color I needed. And so when I took, I had a quilt that had to go to the quilter, and when I went to drop it off, I picked up a couple of green zippers, because this is the trim fabric that I'm using, and so I found this color zipper that'll work really nice. So I have 4 more project bags to make, and then I will be done for, I probably won't make another one for a while, till I get the bug to make those gnomes, the Christmas project bags. But I was going to start cutting that quilt out, you know, the one that Graham, the Yorkshire boy, was working on. But I just kind of wanted to get a few of the piles down. And so I had this wool, isn't that, this is one of my favorites. And all it needed was a binding, and the more I looked at it, the more I did not want to bind it. I didn't think it would look good for me. other people might like binding something like this, but I decided I wanted to face it. And I know I had promised you guys that some of you that were interested in how to face a quilt, I thought I will face this wall hanging table runner, and then you know, I just had a brain fart. How could I, this is like one of my favorite designers. How could I, oh, it almost came. Do you know how that happens? You're sitting there and you're going cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. I almost had it. Oh, it slipped away. It'll come to me. Or one of you's yelling it at me. I know that I bought the pattern at the Corn Wagon Quilt Shop in Springville, Utah on one of our quilt roadie trips. And they had it hanging on, a sample hanging on the wall. And I mean bees, wool. I just was all over it. And so, I almost had it again. I almost had it again. So I decided to face it. That's what I would do. So we're gonna be doing that today. We're gonna face this table runner wall hanging, and the same technique is used for a quilt. If you want to face a quilt, I'm having my lunch, which is a smoothie that I made with chia seeds and a couple of different fruits and a cucumber and some vegetable protein powder. Yummy, yummy. Yeah, so that's what we're going to do today. And the book, because you know how it is when you do a certain technique and you don't do it for a while. You kind of don't have all the steps in your head. Kind of like you can't remember this designer. Oh, I almost had it again. I tell you. Is this what they call quarantine brain? Shoot. I can't even Google it because when I Google things, I write out a whole big sentence and hope it shows up. But let me tell you, one of my favorite designers is Sylvia Pippin. See, she's the Sashiko queen. Well, actually, her mother was the Sashiko queen. And then Sylvia also enjoyed it and became quite the designer. And I have at least 3 or 4 of her projects in various stages of completion. Sashiko, needle turn applique, Sashiko with wool. I mean, she is awesome. Originally, she taught and was based out of the Hawaiian Islands, but then she moved to La Conner, Washington, before her mother passed away to help her mother. And now she has a shop there. And this is one of her older books, Paradise Stitched. I love this book. I mean, look at that on the back. Is that not something? Well, in this particular book, it has a step-by-step on how to face a quilt. And so whenever I'm going to face a quilt, I drag it out and look at it again, just in case, so I don't miss any steps. So with this particular piece, I decided it's pretty thick. It's pretty thick because a lot of wool projects have wool on cotton or linen, and this is actually wool on wool. And then I have a flannel backing, and I quilted it. So it's, gosh, it's almost a 1/4 inch thick, an 1/8 to a 1/4 inch thick. So when I was deciding on my facing fabric, I decided, you know, I don't want to waste wool to do that. Plus wool's kind of stretchy. But I just, you know, I'm kind of a little piggy with my wool. And so I found a piece of flannel, a really nice quality flannel. And I believe this flannel, geez, I'm thinking this is either All Through the Night or Primitive Gatherings, but it's a nice quality flannel. And what they tell you to do is to cut out your strips 3 inches wide. And initially, the first 2 sides you're going to do, you cut out the length that you need, the exact length. So I cut out a 3 inch strip, and it is exactly the length of the project. And then you put right sides together and you sew. You can do like a 1/4 inch seam. Once you do that 1/4 inch seam, then you're going to open this up and you're going to press it. So I'm going to go press it real quick. You can still hear me, you just don't want to see me because I don't want to move the camera. Oh, I forgot to turn the iron on, so it's going to take a minute. The other two, so the 2 sides that you're that are cut exactly the length of your project, then the other 2 sides, the remaining 2 sides, you're going to cut like 2 inches longer on either end so that they're longer than the project. So I have those. I'll show you that. But while my iron is warming up, maybe we'll figure out who makes that project. I almost had it again. Gosh darn it. Gosh darn it. But now that I have getting this project kind of off of the laying on the table, you know what showed up underneath there was some old Sue Spargo projects that need to get done. So I'm going to be working on those. One is the cover for a thread bag, and one is my Paris, my Ode to Paris project. It was a class that I actually took from Sue Spargo and Tony Belinda Phillips, who lives in the neighboring community to Sisters. And I really want to get that done. That is way, way old. Not like you don't want to see it old, but it's been hanging around. And part of it is always deciding with those projects on what stitches to do. You have to be encouraged. Okay, I'm going over to press here. And the trick to facing is that you have to take a second run with your sewing machine on your border. And what I mean by that is that I took my 1/4 inch seam and then I have ironed it out so that it's flat like that, and I am going to take another seam on top of this piece that's like an 1/8 inch all along here. And that's a really important seam to do because that's what makes it roll over. So go do it this way. Yeah, there we go. So you see what I did is I took a seam. I got the quilt in my mouth. See? I took the seam just a quarter or 1/8 inside and I sewed all of it open. And the reason being is that when you fold this back to fold it under, which is called facing, that extra seam makes it roll over. So the next step for me is just to iron this raw edge over, because I'm going to hand stitch it down. You're not, I mean, you're not really saving time from binding a quilt because you are hand stitching it down. The only difference with this is the look of the quilt, you know. So I'm gonna iron that edge down. So you see, let me show you. See how that edge just rolled over? It's that second seam that you do on top of, but parallel to your first seam, that makes it roll over. And then I pressed the raw edge of my piece under, because I'm going to be stitching this down on this side. And then I just pressed it all so that it's going to, that's what it's going to look like. It's going to be faced. And then I have to do the two other edges. But right now what we're going to do is we're going to hand stitch this down. And see, I hand stitched this one down. I just whip stitched it like I do a binding. And I'm going to hand stitch this down. And I can use, if I wanted to just hold it into place, just like a binding, I would clip it. I just like, for certain projects, I just like the way facing looks. And I have another Sashiko project that I faced, a big wall hanging, and it gives an entirely different look. Now I need to get some needle and thread. Do some stitching. So in reading the comments, I'm still making my way. I read all the comments. One of the themes of those comments is that for some people it's been hard to get their stitchy mojo, and I totally get that. It kind of waxes and wanes. I kind of like it to ice cream. Sometimes you're all about the chocolate ice cream. Yeah, you're all about it. And then Ben & Jerry's comes out with a different flavor. And then you want the banana nut chocolate chunk ice cream. And you just can't even think about the brownie ice cream. It's kind of like that. You just kind of have to go with the flow and be okay with it for now. So I know this looks a little awkward from your end, but all I'm doing is I'm just whip stitching the edge down so that I can do the other two ends. And we shall do that together also. Well, I looked up the designer because it was driving me insane. And I I and I'm still kind of shocked that that I had that brain fart. But this project is a crane design by Jan Mott, and I love all of her stuff. That's that's why it's so crazy that I couldn't remember. But you know, I mean, there's a possibility that I'll forget my children's names. I mean, come on, this quarantine thing is making the old brain. That's why I have to keep reading. I mean, I'm so glad I got back into my reading bug, because I have been just churning one book out after another. Because you got to get that, you got to keep that brain working. Otherwise, you might not remember something so simple like your favorite designers. So while I was ruminating, I did the end piece. I wanted to make sure that came out, and so there it is. This is what the facing looks like. See how it's that clean edge, and there's no binding. For this particular project, I like that, and so I just have this other end to tack down. And I wanted to show you again that the way facing is done is that you first take your seam, your 1/4 inch seam, right sides together, and then you press it back, and you take an 1/8 inch seam right over the top of that. And that 1/8 inch seam there is the one that makes it roll over easier when you press it. And you'll see that I have a little bit extra here, and that's because I'm going to fold this in so that it'll give it a nice clean finish, like on that end. You see that? Perfect. So that is facing a quilt for those who want to do it. And it's not any quicker than binding a quilt. It gives it a different look. And so for a modern quilt, facing is just a way to give it a different design element, I guess. So let me, I'm gonna, geez, got a lot of editing on this to do, because I'm going to take you over to another quilt I have hanging here that I've shown you before, but that is also faced, to give you that understanding of what I'm talking about, because sometimes we don't know what we're talking about. So this quilt here is a faced quilt. I decided I didn't want the binding. The binding would add an additional element to the quilt, and it's always a choice on what color binding. Will it detract from what you're seeing, or will it enhance? And so on this particular quilt, I did not want the binding to be a color that would detract, nor did I want, even if I used the gray or cream colored for the binding, it still would add an additional element. So I went ahead with the decision to face it. So you see how there is no binding here. And this is what facing looks like. So you can tell that it's just a matter of choice on what you want it to look like. It isn't any faster though. You still are sewing and whipping down the edge, but what you can do with facing, which is quite clever, is on the top edge here, you can finish off your facing piece only on the edge, but only tack it down and leave it open, so you automatically get a sleeve, a hanging sleeve if you wanted one. So there's your options: facing or binding. I got a package in the mail and I'm going to open it up with you because I know what it is. I mean, I've seen a picture of it. Look at it. But I just want to share the fun. This came from the Twisted Sisters, who I have talked about before. And they are 4 gals who come down every year for a week to the Sisters Quilt Show. Of course, that didn't happen this year. And those girls can finish 20 quilts in a week. They don't sign up for classes. They come down and they stitch. They rent the house and they stitch for a week. But they take in all the activities of the show. Are you ready? Oh, there's a nice card. I love how, because of COVID, nobody licks the envelopes anymore. Yeah. Aww. Aww. A new grandbaby to love. Yeah, we have a new grandbaby on the way. Oh. Can't wait till next year. So let's see. Right now, our new grandbaby, we're calling him Leo. Oh my gosh. Look at that. Now, you have to know that Mary is the queen of animal creations. That in fact, last year, she made this whale, which I use as a pincushion. She made 50 of them and passed them out at the quilt show to people. Just people that look like they needed a whale. But isn't he cute? Oh. And this one is for my grandson, Silas. Oh my gosh. Gosh, I love the fabric this is made out of. They are absolutely adorable. Oh my gosh. And a narwhal. A narwhal. Look at that. That's for my older grandson. Oh, Mary. You make my heart sing. So now I have to take him up to Portland. Boy, I hope that's the snapshot that YouTube takes. Me and my friends. Yeah, oh, so cute. So cute. Yeah, we're going up to Portland next week. So I gotta take these little critters with me. And I plan on, you know, the news makes it sound like, now we're right downtown when we're in Portland. The news is quite interesting because it continues to show the same basic 6 camera shots of the chaos, and it looks like Portland is burning down to the ground and is on fire and it's chaos. And so I wanted to give people a different view of Portland, and I am right downtown when I'm in Portland, so I'm only probably about 5 city blocks from where the chaos is, you know. And it's not chaos like you think. There are real important protests going on in Portland. And Portland is a passionate city. And they rarely, as long as I've been a part of that community, there is, they don't just turn and look the other way. If there's something that is wrong, they stand up for it. And so there are a lot of important protests going on. It's just the element that causes the chaos that is difficult. And so when I go down there, when we go up, I am actually going to do a walk around on Facebook Live. And I'm hoping to do that on Wednesday and be able to just give you a little different view of what the city looks like. And yes, there is damage, and yes, there's graffiti, and yes, there are some parts of it that are not very good. But it is not the whole city going down. And the protests are going on. There is a reason those protests are going on. And so I just want to give you a different view. So if you happen to be a Facebook follower, know that sometime on Wednesday I'm going to do a live walk around like I do the live walk arounds in the woods. I'm going to do one in Portland just to show you that, yeah, not not everything you see in the news is the reality. You know, when you see that veterans are down there protesting, when you see there's moms and there's dads, those are people that are, their heart is hurting and they want change. They want change. And so I'll share that with you. But until then, I'm going to be stitching away. I'm going to finish my project bags here. I hope to be cutting out that quilt sometime this week, and then maybe breaking out some other wool stitching. I want you to also keep Stacy West of Buttermilk Basin in your heart and prayers. I talked with her yesterday, and I noticed today that she, and the only reason I'm saying this is because I saw that she also posted on social media today, and so I feel okay about sharing this with you also. And Stacy West is the designer of the project that I have here, Buttermilk Basin. Her husband is having a triple bypass surgery today. And probably about the time you see this video, he'll be out in recovery and, you know, dancing maybe. But just kind of know that there are people in the world that are still dealing with really difficult, challenging things in their lives that has nothing to do with COVID. And keep them in your prayers and your thoughts, because in this day and age, your husband goes in for a triple bypass surgery, you don't get to be there. You don't get to, you know, be right there like in years. You know, when we would have a patient come in and have surgery, as we got reports from the surgeon, we would go out and face to face say, this is where the surgery is, this is why it's taking longer, and you got that human to human contact for to help you deal with the stress of what's going on. But now you can't go hang around in the hospital. You know, you just can't do it, and there's too much risk to it. So keep them in your thoughts and prayers. Keep them in your thoughts and prayers. I guess that's it. And we shall see you the next time. I have not a clue what I'll be working on next time, because it seems like I'm all over the board. I do want to break out. Just having this book out makes me want to bring out all my Sashiko stuff. So who knows what I will do next time. But in the meantime, you take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones. Whatever decision you make, I know that you're the one that has to live with it. So be cautious. Keep stitching. And I'll be here to listen and to share next time around. I love you guys.
Thanks for watching.
And be sure to like and subscribe on Quilt Roadies.